at www.parrysound.ca. And so there was a closed meeting prior to the open session. Was moved by Councillor Backman and second by Councillor Burden. Pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, RSO 2001, Chapter 25 is amended. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moved to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, French Public School Board, and tax-exempt properties. And there was an added item, C, which is a property matter. And that was carried, and the meeting was held. Are there any additions or prioritization of the agenda? Yes, Councillor Backman.
If we can move up the one item with Dissler.
Yes.
That's possible.
Yep.
And also.
Do you have the number?
Sorry. I think it's 10-2-2.
10-2-2. Okay. Yeah.
And also if we can move forward the recreation item. Sorry, I don't have that number here. Um, 10-3, 3-1.
10-3-1.
Yes, please.
Okay. Anything further with regard to the agenda? Seeing none, may I move mover and seconder for the agenda, please. Councillor Backman, Councillor McCann. That the council meeting, council agenda for November 5th, 2019 be approved as amended. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest of the general nature thereof? Councillor Horn.
I do. Item 10.2.1, the contract with the Fire Dispatch Service and the West Parry Sound Health Center, as my spouse is the Chief Operating Officer of West Parry Sound Health Center. Thank you.
Very good. Anyone else? No? Okay. A mover and seconder for the minutes. Councillor Borneman, Councillor Keith. That the minutes of the regular council meeting held October the 15th, 2019 be approved as circulated. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Questions of staff? Councillor Borneman.
Questions for Mr. Brown. In the past few days, Mr. Brown, there's been a good deal of reporting about lead in public drinking water in across Canada, actually. We test our water on a regular basis. Is lead one of the substances that we test for, and what, if any, lead do we find in the drinking water in Parry Sound through those testing exercises?
Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Through your worship, yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about that through the media. Rest assured, the town of Parry Sound staff are mandated and do sampling for lead all through Parry Sound. We have received relief from doing the number of samples because all our lead samples have come back extremely low. To be clear, when you're sampling for lead, the majority of municipalities, when you're sampling for it, you're sampling people's plumbing, the internal system. The majority of pipes don't have lead in Ontario. There are some older sections in certain parts of Ontario that do have lead packing in pipes. But Parry Sound, to our knowledge, does not have any lead pipes in the ground. But again, there may be some lead in people's houses, which we've seen, minute amounts on the sampling regime, but nothing of significance. And the MOE is well aware of our sampling results. We have a full set that we've done. We also sample for pH and alkalinity, which are indicators for possible lead. But at this time, we have not received any any noticeable samples of lead issues in Parry Sound.
Good? Follow-up?
It's not a follow-up with respect to that, it's a separate question.
Oh,
I just wonder if you can update us with respect to Wabick Street, and whether we're gonna make it before the snow starts to accumulate, Mr. Brown.
Through your worship, that's a very good question. We're surprised by and disappointed by the weather. We were hoping for another couple of weeks of decent weather. The contractor, Weeks Construction, is working extremely hard to get things sewn up before the end of this year. Wabick Street is almost complete. There's a little bit of water main work that has to be done at the top of the hill at the intersection of Belvedere Avenue and Wabick, which will be started hopefully on Thursday. Melvin should be done tomorrow. They've been working extremely hard to get that little section of road done. We've been notified by the subcontractor that asphalt may be an issue, because a lot of asphalt companies now are shutting down. A lot of them, Ontario, have already shut down because of the cold weather. I've spoken to the contractor directly today, and he has said that at this particular point, the asphalt plant will remain open until the end of next week. If the weather holds, they'll keep it open longer. The contractor is well aware of that, so they're working extremely hard to at least get one lift of asphalt on the road before freeze up. You'll recall when we did Forest Street, we were paving on December 21st in the snow.
yeah.
Apparently, contractors don't like doing that anymore. But I'm hopeful that we'll have at least one lift of asphalt down before the season arrives.
Councillor McCann?
Thank you. This is for Mr. Brown as well. You mentioned the water main work at the intersection there. Do you anticipate that Belvedere Avenue could be blocked off from traffic at that end, that entrance for more than, say, a day or so, just to sort of give everybody in that area, especially folks who visit and work at Belvedere Heights, the know to take another route to get up there?
Through your worship, we don't anticipate a full closure in that area. There will be at least one lane open with traffic control. There are other ways of getting up to Belvedere, even though the unfortunate side effect of a one-way street is you can only go one way in one section. But we're hoping that everything will be clear, as at least one lane open during that work in that intersection.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions? No? Correspondence, Ms. Johnson.
Yes, Your Worship, we have about 7 or 8 items of correspondence, a couple that were just added today. The first item is from Dan Madigan of Elizabeth Court, concerns with cars parked on Elizabeth Court, and requests that signs be posted saying no parking at any time. Since this letter has come in, the Bylaw Enforcement Department and the Public Works have responded with signs put up, and Mr. Madigan has been responded to regarding that. The second item is from Nathan Cato, the Director of Government Affairs with Canadian Pacific. It's regarding the CP holiday train on November 29th. It'll be arriving in Parry Sound at 4:30. The third item is from Gurnath Hadi, the President of the Parry Sound Seniors Club, with a request for $5,000 funding in 2020. That request has been forwarded to the Finance Department for them to bring forward for consideration during budget deliberations. Fourth item is from Don Cowan from William Street, requesting a 4-way stop at James William Rosetta Miller intersection. A similar request came in by correspondence in the last few months and was referred to the Public Works Department, and the director has indicated that he will be bringing forward the issue for consideration of council in the 2020 budget for an engineering report of that intersection. The next item is from Guy Bourillon, the MPP of Mushkegowuk, James Bay, requesting support for Bill 125 regarding Making Northern Ontario Highways Safer Act. That correspondence has been referred to all members of council for for their consideration of whether they wish to provide support for that. So the next two items are additions this evening. The first addition is from the LCBO Convenience Outlets Program. They are writing to advise that they're accepting proposals from local retailers up to November 20th this year to be an LCBO convenience location. And we're looking for ways of getting that information out, so it's on correspondence this evening. And the last item is from the National Housing Day, from DSAB, National Housing Day on November 20th, and an open house at DSAB at Beechwood Avenue from 11 to 2.
Very good. Thank you. So now we come to the deputations and presentations portion of tonight's council meeting. Deputations are held to a maximum of 10 minutes each, including questions of clarification from council. Presentations are also subject to the same rules of conduct as members of council, that no one shall speak disrespectfully or use offensive words or insulting expressions against any member of council, staff, or another member of the public. Please speak clearly and approximately 1 foot directly in front of the microphone so that everyone can hear what you have to say. So our first deputation tonight is Joanna Han, co-chair of the Parry Sound Drug Strategy and Community Health Promoter for North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So today I'll be doing a presentation on the Community Sharp Spin and how the town of Parry Sound can support with this initiative. I just wanted to start off the presentation by saying that this initiative would be a collaborative effort with the health unit, and we would be supporting with the follow-through of this project as well. So keeping our neighborhoods safe is our collective responsibility, and improperly discarded needles and other drug paraphernalia found in our communities can be of public concern. In an effort to promote community safety, the North Bay Parry Sound District Health Unit, along with numerous partners, have implemented a variety of measures to address this issue. So what is harm reduction? So harm reduction actually reduces the adverse health, social, and economic consequences associated with drug use and is comprised of a wide range of programs, services, and practices. It aims to reduce the impact of substance use both on the user and on society in general. The approaches are evidence-based, non-judgmental, and non-coercive. They're essentially client-centered and meet people where they are at. Harm reduction philosophy is rooted in the fact that substance use is a very complex issue and individuals are not always ready or able to stop using. Harm reduction, the importance of harm reduction is that it has been proven that it does not encourage or increase substance use, but as a harm reduction approach is essential to minimizing risk and reducing harm to individuals. Harm reduction strategies help reduce infectious disease transmission, overdose and deaths in our communities, injection and substance use in public spaces, the number of used needles in public spaces, the sharing of needles and other substance use equipment, as well as a reduction in crime. In addition, harm reduction strategies help increase employment among people who use substances, outreach and education, and referrals to programs and services in our community. Just a few quick examples of harm reduction that you may be familiar with are the nicotine patch replacement, as well as condoms and safe sex education, as well as needle exchange programs. So looking at the slide here, these are the needle exchange statistics for the Parry Sound branch of the health unit from January 2018 until September 2019. So as you can see, we have distributed about 80,000 needles out in the community and received about 60,000 needles back. It's important to note that these numbers only count for the health unit, and the OETC located downtown Parry Sound also has a public needle exchange program, but the numbers are not reported here. Looking at these numbers, we can see that there is a significant number of needles not being returned. And it's been a local trend that needle exchange agencies are distributing needles but not seeing the same number of needles being returned. Reports from our local landlords and concerned citizens around unsafe disposal of needles can raise a significant safety risk to people. Providing easy access to centrally located sharp spins allows easier access for safe disposal, thereby increasing community safety and a lower risk of needle sticks, which is being poked by the needle. So So how can we address this growing number of needles in our community? So one way is through a community sharp spin, which provides 24-hour, 7-day-a-week drop-off. Installing a sharp spin provides equitable access to safe needle disposal options, increasing our community safety and protecting citizens. It can also reduce the healthcare costs associated with the potential transmission of infection, as well as reducing the overall stigma around substance use, moving it from more of a personal issue to a community-wide safety issue. So what is the best way to determine the location of a community sharp spin? In Parry Sound, we have been navigating this by collecting feedback from individuals who use substances. First, we implemented a quick survey over the summer with our needle exchange clients and people who use substances, and this was done in 3 locations in Parry Sound, at the Health Unit, the OATC, as well as the First Nations and Inuit Health Branch. So the findings were then collated into 3 top locations in town that were the top choices for the box to be placed. The next step in moving this forward would be to hold a focus group with a group of individuals with lived experience, meaning they have had current or past substance use. And the focus group would look at safety concerns, logistics, as well as sustainability or usability of the bin. Once a location is determined, the site should be approved and inspected by the city to determine if it's a suitable location, and then a cement slab can then be poured and the bin can be installed. So the community education campaign will also accompany the installation of the bin. So this campaign has been designed with individuals with lived experience and will include posters, maps and harm reduction kits, and FAQ for agency websites and distribution. A possible testing drive at the bin location could also be arranged for people to come visit and ask questions. Posters as well as radio ads for the general public will also be implemented. So this slide is actually outlines the duties and responsibilities associated with the installation, education, maintenance, pickup, and disposal of the sharp bins. And the costs were projected with the intention that the health unit will be gifting the bin to the town and the ownership will belong to the town after. But I just want to emphasize that it's a collaborative effort and we're always here to support in moving it forward. The costs are based on a bi-weekly pickup and maintenance that occurs twice a week. And the chart outlines how the health unit and other agencies can support this initiative in Parry Sound, as well as the costs that may be associated to the town itself. I have provided a detailed breakdown of the 4 options that the city could choose, and each options have their benefits and challenges. So one option may be a little bit more cost effective, but it may require a little bit more of a hands-on approach from the city, whereas the more expensive option requires less of a hands-on approach. So I guess I can just briefly talk about the cost. So the bin maintenance ranges from $0 to about $2,500 annually. So the maintenance would be, you could assign city workers to kind of check on the bin, or you could contract another agency out from the community. That could be any agency that has training in sharps to do that work for you. And the sharps pickup and disposal ranges from about $1,500 to $7,700 annually. So that option, the cheaper option would be the city would be a pickup option, assigning city workers, and then the more expensive option would be hiring ECS Cares, which is a comprehensive organization that does pickup and disposal of needles. So that concludes my presentations. I know I probably went through that very quickly, so I'm open to any questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you. You kept within the time. That's really
Yes,
good.
I was practiced very
Good
hard.
for you. Questions? Councillor Horn and Councillor Backman.
Thank you for your presentation and really great information in terms of how to keep our communities safe. So in terms of moving forward, do we need direction that the health unit and the town staff work together to bring this forward for the budget in 2020 and establish some guidelines? I'm not sure.
You can ask to have that brought to the budget.
Okay, I'd like to ask that be brought to the budget. Thanks.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Keith. All in favor of that? That's carried. Okay. Step number 1, Councillor Backman.
Thank you for your presentation. I was just curious if you could provide some insight as to the location these are placed in other communities?
So just off the top of my head, West Nipissing has currently approved the bin as well, and it's being placed, I'm not sure exactly on the location, but it's being placed in a discrete but central location so that people who use these boxes it's not completely out in the public eye. So some of the suggested options in Parry Sound were near around the fitness trail, around kind of the Bobby Orr Center Bridge. Those are a few options. Thinking about other communities like Oshawa or Peterborough, they're spaced quite, the locations are all chosen by people who use substances. So it may be in the corner of a parking lot that's kind of not used as frequently. So it really depends on where it is. I can provide more information on that if you're more interested as well.
Yep.
With regards to the amount of needles out and the amount of needles in, it looks like there's about 20,000 somewhere out there. Where do you expect these needles are?
So that's a question that all of the agencies who sit at the drug strategy have kind of been contemplating, and we're not really quite sure. So some people may stock up and bring them in all at once. So we sometimes see spikes in returns. So we may receive 10,000 needles back one month and only receive 150 back another month. So we think that people maybe will keep the needles and then bring them in when it's convenient for them, but we're not quite sure where they go.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any further, Councillor Keith?
Yes, just have a question. I remember talking to somebody a little while ago in town here who advised me, a different city, that has been using this concept, but they indicated that these bins were still put in a place that a variety of people, not just drug users, would know, and therefore they would feel safe. So therefore, if they found or whatever, it could easily be deposited. So I guess my concern is when you make recommendations of possible spots, do you also take into account, like there's safety issues for the safety of other people too? So is that taken into account?
Yes, definitely. You mean the surrounding public and their use as well? Yes, for sure. So one of the recommendations we brought forward that I didn't touch on was we recommend that a garbage can also be placed in close proximity to the bin in case that if the bin was to be full, people don't throw the needles into the garbage bin, or vice versa, throw garbage into the needle disposal bin. And that's kind of where maintenance comes as well. It would be twice a week maintenance where someone would kind of check up on if the bin was full or if it needed to be maintained.
Any further questions? No? All in favor? We're good. Thank you very much. And looks like it'll be discussed in the budget process, which is really, really good. Okay?
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next deputation is Christine Bohm and Daniel Collins. Sorry? Just Daniel Collins. Just Daniel. Okay, all right.
First and foremost, thank you for having me here today just to provide you a little bit of information about our organization and our foodrescue.ca program. Again, my name is Daniel Collins. I work for Second Harvest, which is Canada's largest food rescue organization. And we've created a free online program called foodrescue.ca, which directly connects food businesses with surplus food to redistribute to non-for-profit organizations in the community. Just here to talk to you a little, provide you a little bit of information about that and how it's what's been happening in Parry Sound thus far, and looking potentially for some feedback to help promote the program as well. So before we dive in what foodrescue.ca, the platform is, it's good to discuss some of the issues. Issue number one is surplus food. In Canada, we have 35.5 million metric tons of food wasted in Canada annually. And if you look at from dollars and cents, that's $1 billion if you can count in labor, electricity, water, transportation. And as many of you know, food that does end up in landfill causes methane gas, which is the leading cause of climate change. Our organization, Second Harvest, did a world first study this year with Value Chain Management International, which is a leading researcher when it comes to food loss and food waste. And we really wanted to understand, where does food loss and food waste happen along the supply chain? And what we found is that 58% of all food produced in Canada is lost or wasted, and 32% of that is avoidable. So our organization really focuses on that 32% of what is avoidable. How can we capture that within our food system and get it to people that are potentially facing food insecurity? To put that even a bit further, the annual avoidable food loss in Canada is enough to feed every Canadian for 5 months. When it comes to greenhouse gases, if food loss and food waste was a country, it would be the third largest producer of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. So China being first, USA, and then this country representing food loss and food waste. The second issue, besides having this abundance amount of surplus food that's within our food system, is individuals facing food insecurity, this inadequate access to healthy, affordable food. In Canada, 13% of Canadians face food insecurity, 4 million of those being Canadians, equating to 1.15 million children. So we have, again, abundance of surplus food and individuals facing food insecurity. To give a little background just about our organization, Second Harvest, again, Canada's largest food rescue organization. We've been around for 35 plus years. One of our core programs are based out of Toronto, and we have a fleet of trucks in which we go rescue from over 400 food businesses, bring it back to our warehouse, and then redistribute that amongst 373 social service organizations within the GTA. But we know there's a lot of food out there within our food system that can be captured. So we've created an innovative solution to expand our model called foodrescue.ca. Which essentially, again, connects food businesses with surplus food to redirect it to non-for-profit organizations in the community, creates greater capacity for food rescue and distribution within that. So I'll just give you an overview about foodrescue.ca. It's a completely free program. This is a website I recommend having a look if you're interested. Essentially, if someone's interested in registering, they click in the top right corners saying join now. They have an opportunity to donate food or to rescue food. From there, they go through an application process, takes about 10 to 15 minutes to complete, and they'd have access into their main account, which you can see here today, right in front of you. So this is our main dashboard. Which makes foodrescue.ca unique is it actually tracks all of your donations that you're making and the rescues you're making. So it gives you the statistics and the data behind what you're doing. So it provides you how many meals you provided for your community if you're a food business, as an agency, how many meals you provided for your organization, shows the dollar value of that. And it shows actually the greenhouse gases have been averted by the donations you're making and the rescuing you're doing. And it shows you other things such as the food categories that you're donating out to your community as well. So how the system works generally is that a food business through their account would post a donation. And I'll show you how it works. Essentially, they'd have two options to make a single donation or a recurring donation. So it might be a one-off, ad hoc donation, or it could be a recurring donation, something more established for pickup, every Monday and Friday, for example. A food business is specify what type of food they have available. So there's 15 types of food categories they can choose from. Could be produce, dairy, meat, fish, could be prepared foods, could be condiments. They can choose one category or they can choose as many as they like. They'd specify approximately how much it weighs, how it needs to be stored. From there, they would say exactly where their location is, and then they would specify what is the time range in which they want the food to be rescued. Once they have all those donation details, on this page, they simply click to confirm to offer this food. And from there, once they post a donation on foodrescue.ca, it gets sent out to the not-for-profit organizations around them as a text message or email. This is a similar email that they would receive, which if there's something they have capacity to rescue, if there's something they're interested in rescuing, they would click the link within the email. It would take them to foodrescue.ca, and then the opportunity to see all the donation details, and then choose to claim this food. Once they claim the food, essentially it takes it off the marketplace, so no other agency would be able to claim that rescue. So I know I'm giving you a lot of information there just to how the system works, but who can actually register? Any charity or not-for-profit organization. So it could be a food bank, meal program, could be a shelter, could be student nutrition programs, could be organizations that don't necessarily focus on food, such as aid services or children's reading clubs. And we have all of those currently part of the program. What types of food are available for businesses? Any type of food business can register. It could be a restaurant, catering company, cafe. It could be a producer, like a farmer. It could be a retail store, among any others. We do focus on the nutrients-dense perishables, such as produce, protein, and dairy. However, they can choose from the 15 different type of food category that potentially they have surplus of. Some of the benefits of this program, again, it's completely free. There's no requirements of use. It tracks all your metrics of the food rescues and donations you're making. For food businesses, oftentimes they have bins in the back. They have to, dispose of their surplus food that then would go to landfill. They have to pay a tipping fee. This usually comes based on weight or frequency. By redirecting this surplus food back out to their community, it actually saves them money. For an agency, being part of the program by rescuing food, they can help to use some of that food budgets, that costs that they have in the organization, and redistribute that to other programs and services to build out to what they're already doing. Another big success of this program has been the community connections piece. So having agencies actually going out and rescuing their community, meeting their store managers, meeting the baristas, the chefs, this has been a huge aspect to try to bring a better culture to every city in town. And finally, obviously, the environmental impact. Making sure this food doesn't end in landfill and to the people that could use it has been an incredible benefit. As it relates to the town of Parry Sound, obviously you guys are aware of the Partners of Climate Change Protection Program. This commitment to reducing the greenhouse gas emissions and these targets and strategies for reduction, starting in 2020. When it comes to food loss and food waste, this program could be utilized with your city to see exactly how much greenhouse gases have been averted by rescues that are happening in their communities. So it could be used in that aspect. Talking back to food insecurity, in Canada, as overall, it's 1 in 8 families struggle to put healthy food on their plate. In Parry Sound, it's 1 in 7. So again, this program could be help support some of those great programs and services that are out there in Parry Sound. Just to give you this is generally the end of it, but give you a bit of perspective of overall about the program. We've been piloting this since May of last year. We officially launched foodrescue.ca in middle of October, so it's just over a year old. We already have over 1,000 food businesses, over 850 social service organizations, over 600,000 pounds of food have been rescued. And specifically in Parry Sound, there's already some incredible champions such as Harry's No Frills, Trestle Brewing Company, Boston Pizza, just to name a few from the donor side. And from an agency side, organizations like the Salvation Army, Harvest Share, Mary Street Center have really embraced this program. So looking to you guys to help to potentially promote this program and see if we can get more donors on board and get more food exchanged to the platform. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Borneman, then Councillor McCann, then Councillor Keith.
This might be a little off the wall, but you're tracking the value of the food that's donated. Is there a potential tax benefit to a donor for, providing food to charity and nonprofit organizations? Is your computer system well enough recognized to allow that to happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's certain requirements that have to be met in order to get an in-kind receipt. So when it comes to actually donating food, for example, it needs to be 14 days, if it's perishable items, 14 days prior to the best before date. And if it's shelf-stable food, it's 3 months prior. So a lot of the times this tool is essentially just to be used as kind of that, to help to redirect it when it's, they might not be able to sell the food, but it's still good edible surplus food. So when it comes to specific getting a tax receipt, more or less it's within those requirements, or if they're making food for donation, then they'd be eligible for an in-kind receipt. Mm-hmm.
Councillor McCann.
I actually had a couple of questions. Thank you for coming tonight. I think you've answered a few of them. It sounds like you're getting cooperation from corporate partners like No Frills and Sobeys and such. Is that standard across the board, like in other parts of the province as well? That's one of my questions.
Yeah, that's correct. So just give you a perspective of how this program is actually funded. It's through the Walmart Foundation. They provided $1.8 million. Loblaws has provided $500,000 towards this. We're partnered with corporations such as Starbucks. And currently we're piloting, actually beginning today, with Shoppers Drug Mart. We've been piloting with Recipe Unlimited, that's all those Kelsey's, Montanas, Swiss Chalet, those stores as well. So yeah, right now it's kind of piloting with certain corporations to show the success of the program, to build kind of some standard SOPs that they can hopefully, create that across the board throughout the provinces as we continue to expand. Because currently we're throughout all the provinces of Ontario and Lower Mainland BC, but we'll be expanding that out through a few more provinces into next year. Hope that answers your question.
So follow up to that then, when the food is picked up at local establishments, is it redistributed somehow within the community, or is it, like, I'm wondering, are you criticized maybe for taking these food rationings and lugging them down to Toronto to take care of Toronto's hunger problem? I hate to sound naive, I'm just wondering if that's a criticism that you get, and is it also a standard that what about residents? Do they participate in this as well? Like if they tend to have food that, like some people are big shoppers, they'll buy in bulk and find that they don't need stuff. And so, but yeah, I was just wondering if how you're looking at, was there any criticism of taking the food out of the community?
It's a great question. It's actually the exact opposite. This program is to be localized, so the food stays within its own community. So, donor food businesses that donate food out, it's getting rescued by agencies around them. So none of this food will be going to Toronto or anything like that. It's staying locally. So how the system works actually from an agency perspective is they set the range in which they want to receive these donation notifications. So if they don't have capacity to volunteers or vehicles, they can set a range within 1 kilometer. So they'd only receive these donation notifications within that range, but they have the ability to stretch that out to 5, 10, 20 kilometers. But going back to that, it's really to focus on that community piece where, such as Boston Pizza would post a donation out, something like Harvest Share might see it and then be able to rescue it. So it's really, the program is essentially to help support those agencies that are having individuals accessing food, that are facing food insecurity, and keeping it localized in that sense. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Keith.
Thank you. I have two questions. Councillor Borneman asked the one regarding the tax receipt, but the second one is liability insurance. Does this program have some sort of liability insurance? Can you explain that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a very common question we get. There's actually the Donation of Food Act in place, which actually our board of director helped to implement back in '94, which is that no business organization or individual is liable if they're donating out of goodwill. So that act is put in place so that people can donate out food. When it comes to the program itself, we vet our social service organizations. So we ensure that they are a charity first and foremost, and they have safe food practices in place. So they have an individual with safe food handling, for example, and we do make sure they have cooler bags and ice packs. So if they're rescuing temperature-sensitive foods, that they can maintain that cold chain when they go to a food business, pick up the food, and then bring it back for their programs and services. So we do take public health safety very seriously. I'm actually a safe food handler and trainer myself. So yes, that's always first and foremost when it comes to maintaining the food within that cold chain so they can bring it back to their facility safely. Yeah.
Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you very much. Our next deputation tonight is Ted Knight from the Mary Street Center. Welcome.
Thank you for putting me in at the last minute for this deputation. And I'm representing St. James United Church, the Mary Street Center, on the consent form that is moving forward here tonight. And the main thing, if we look at the agenda, it is payment in lieu of parkland dedication of one new lot. And I thought about this, what we're trying to do is where the church is on Mary Street, Miller Street. There's the law office right in behind the church on Mary Street at 22 Miller. What the church wants to do is to sever that lot and sell it so the church basically can move forward with some of its programs to help the community. So I'm here this evening to discuss the cash in lieu of parkland on the consent before you. Everything of research says developers pay parkland dedication fee for the development of property they wish to develop. St. James United, also known as Mary Street Center, is not a developer as such. However, St. James United and Mary Street Center is a place for our community to gather and help those in need, like Harvest Share, Mary Street Boutique, for example. There's many things we do in our outreach programs. In saying this, it is strongly felt that we are not a developer that builds houses or units, but we are a developer of services required by so many in our community. By severing and selling the former manse at 22 Miller Street, we would be able to further building the needs of our community through the various outreach programs. You could say that we are kind of a park that helps our community to grow and making those in need less needy and healthier through our outreach programs at Mary Street Center. Nothing is being added, nothing is being subtracted for either property, as 22 Miller Street has been rented for many, many years to the same lawyer. And if I think back, it's probably over 25 years that this lawyer has rented the property. The consent before us helps St. James and Mary Street Center to continue and grow programs that our community desperately requires. Please consider an exemption for the cash in lieu of parkland in this consent application. And I've got as an ending, God acts in many ways. And by the exemption here today, this could be one of the many ways that he does act. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay, all right, thank you. Yep. Next is reports. I remember who I started with last time, so, what? It was? Okay, then Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On October 22nd, I attended a Boundary Adjustment Committee meeting with the Town of Parry Sound and the Township of Seguin. Very productive meeting, and looking forward to continuing those discussions with the Township of Seguin. On October 28th, I attended the Planning Board meeting, and there was 2 consent applications, one for McKellar Township and one for the municipality of Whitestone. I would like to send my condolences out to the Morale and Demick family on the passing of Jerome Morale, who was longtime treasurer with the Town of Parry Sound, 26 years. He was also the patriarch of Irene's Donuts, which I think if you're old enough, you remember. I had the pleasure of growing up with the Morale family, attending school with Steve through William Beatty High School, University of Western Ontario. Fabulous family, and he certainly will be missed. He taught me the value of a good stiff drink of Kahlua and whiskey, and I will be having one for Jerome tonight. So once again, condolences to the Morale and Demick family. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. I attended the Community Policing Advisory Committee meeting, and Sergeant Kelly Worthrow provided a 10-minute presentation, and she has been invited to come to local council meeting and future just to explain the policing model, the fees that are paid to the OPP, but basically there's a division of the money in the way that there's the calls, the basic service, and the additional services and how fees are broken up within it. I wanted to say in respect to the third quarter this year compared to last year, we're actually down again in violent crime, property crime, and drug use. I should also say that fraud is up, and it's hard to understand why, but that's where we are there. The number that is still unsettling is the number of misled false 911 calls in the whole district of Parry Sound. Education obviously is something that still needs to be done. And I am thinking at the rate we're going, it's going to take a decade for people to understand. You gotta not be having pocket dials. You have to have your phones covered so this is not happening. And, you know, when people are calling the 911 number because a dog is barking, that is, from my viewpoint, just totally ridiculous. Foot patrols is down this quarter, and I would also say that you've probably seen in the newspaper also, Officer Joe Scally is now the community service officer for the OPP, and by spring of next year, he should be well trained to be providing the DARE program. In the meantime, if there are other programs and services that he can provide, this is what he's going to do. Further, I attended the St. Peter's School, along, of course, with our mayor there, and that was really interesting to hear the questions from the grade 5-6 class regarding local government. And so that was very interesting because there were some very thoughtful questions, and there were a couple of humorous questions also. In addition, then I attended the mock council meeting along with fellow councillor Doug McCann and of course the mayor, and then of course we had some of our representative staff and Stephanie Phillips from the our financial director and bylaw officer, and of course Stephanie from the newspaper was there, all helping out to make the mock council meeting go very well. And of course, I'm sure afterwards the fruit and cookies, well, or cake, I'm sorry, the fruit and cake, they were not falling on deaf ears or deaf mouths because everybody was partaking of that. So we always know that's, we know the food gets you right to the heart. So I guess if afterwards you eat something, maybe you remember also what went on in the training and learning experience. I attended the Committee of Adjustment meeting last week, and that one variance was approved. I attended the Parry Sound Planning Board meeting, and that has already been discussed. And today I want to say I thought Ms. McNamara and Hydro One did a fine job today when I saw that our lobby of the Bobby Orr Community Center was being used, and what they had there at least till 1 o'clock, I understand is possible it will be there tomorrow, at least when I was talking to two of the representatives there, Edward and Emmeline, and what it was building a safe community. And they had a little community right there on a board, all just like a little town, all set up kind of very cute, like a dollhouse, but in a bigger fashion, so to speak. And you could get on your bike, whether you were a little tot, so there was a smaller bike, or me, of course, I had to take a regular bike, and you could get on that and cycle for a couple of minutes, and you can get, for example, watch the little car go around the racetrack in a safe fashion, not like something we more recently seen on the news that's inappropriate, but at the same time seeing how driving and safety was very important. And they had a second interactive display there where it was again very interesting for all age groups and could show you so that you could choose what was appropriate and what was inappropriate for safety issues in respect to electricity. So I found it very informative, and I thought it was really great that Hydro One wanted to come to little communities and not just the bigger communities to educate and say, you know, here, this is a learning experience and we want to support our communities and we want to keep them safe. So I appreciated all that. And I also extend my condolences to the Morale and Demick family. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome everyone. On October the 25th, I attended a flag raising here at the town office along with Councillor McCann to declare Poppy Day for the Royal Canadian Legion branch here in Parry Sound. On October 26th, along with Mr. Mayor, I attended a retirement dinner party for 3 of our volunteer firefighters. Brian Tuck with 28 years of service, Jamie Tranter with 18 years, and Nevin Carbonen with 12 years were honored and thanked for their commitment to the safety of the people of Parry Sound. On October 31st, I attended a rescheduled regular monthly meeting of the Industrial Park Board, where we approved the sale of 3 lots, 6 acres of land in the park for the purpose of building a new 40,000 square foot factory for the manufacture of state-of-the-art housing units. The intention of this company is to create initially 21 good jobs, which will hopefully be filled with local workers. This again makes it clear our need to promote housing projects at all levels in our community and the surrounding area. On November the 1st, I attended a gathering at the Social Services Office for the purpose of proclaiming the month of November as Woman Abuse Prevention Month in Parry Sound. We were presented with some rather shocking and concerning statistics regarding abuse of women in our district. The dedicated staff in our district social services are doing the best to help the victims, but the whole community needs to get involved in fixing this horrible problem, and that is my report.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. On the 17th of October, I attended the annual general meeting at Belvedere Heights. The meeting was well attended by residents, their families, staff, and members of various councils in West Parry Sound. We had a fairly lengthy and informative review of where we stand locally regarding the formation of an Ontario health team from Jim Hanna of the West Parry Sound Health Centre. To me, personally at least, it's most encouraging to see all of the entities involved in the care of our citizens actively at the table working towards, together towards some sort of resolution to this as the LHINs are phased out. The province initially indicated that each of these health teams would service 300,000 people, meaning there'd be approximately 50 across Ontario. To date, 31 applications have been green-lighted to go forward, including applications from Barrie, Orillia, North Bay, and Sudbury. A further 41, including our own, have not been rejected but sent back to the drawing board for additional refinement. In my mind, it behooves every council in the West Parry Sound area to pay particular attention to what's happening in this respect. Having the decision-making authority move to a larger, more distant community will result in a situation somewhat akin to the Board of Education, where we have limited access to authority and input with respect to the actions of these health teams as they move forward. I did invite Mr. Hanna to attend as often as he needs to update us in this regard, and I hope he does so in the not too distant future. On the 28th of October, I attended as an observer at the Wellness Complex meeting held here. It was well attended by the public, conducted in an orderly fashion, and it appears that solid progress is being made, which surpasses the previous efforts in this respect, I think. On the 31st, as Councillor Burden said, the Industrial Park Board met. I want to throw some kudos to Vlad. His fingers are all over this, as with respect to many other economic development opportunities that we're seeing in the area. This technology that Councillor Burden refers to is currently being used in Europe, Quebec, and BC. The company initially intends to hire, as Roger said, 21 employees, and their plan is, because this technology is so new, that they'll hire and train these employees. These folks were impressive, as was the product. They're self-funding, not looking for government assistance. So I think that augurs well for their future here. Had a number of meetings. The meetings continue at the airport. Project is moving along rather more slowly than we had hoped because of the weather. We've not yet completed the installation of electrical services, a fire pond, and septic beds. We're hoping, as Mr. Brown said, that Mother Nature cooperates for a couple of weeks to allow that to take place. We also had our first look at the 2020 or the budget. This is kind of fluid at this point, but there is no indication that there will be any increase in the municipal levy. I too would offer my condolences to the Morel family. Jerome was always a gentleman. He treated people with respect. Finally, I'd say Monday is Remembrance Day. I hope folks get out, support the Legion, buy a poppy, thank a vet, and be grateful for the freedoms that come at an awfully significant cost. And that's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff, and public. A lot of what I had to report on here has been mentioned around the table, so my report won't be quite so long. Anyhow, Thursday evening, as was mentioned, October 17th, the Belvedere Heights Long-Term Care Annual General Meeting was held in the beautiful Fireside Lounge at the Belvedere Heights. And as Councillor Morneman mentioned, Jim Hanna made a spectacular presentation and really taught me a lot of things that I didn't quite know or understand in terms of how things were coming together to form a local OHT following the dissolving of the LHINs. So moving forward, so that was a nice evening and a good turnout indeed. And then Wednesday morning, October 23rd, I attended Belvedere Heights monthly meeting. Financial statements were reviewed and accepted. We reviewed some bylaws pertaining to board meetings and kind of just established some clear guidelines for quorums and whether you could electronically vote or you had to be there in person. And so everything is moving along fine. We have a good board and good attendance. Also, Belvedere Heights is inviting the municipalities of Archipelago, Carling, McDougall, McKellar, McMurrick, Monteith, Seguin, Whitestone, and the town of Parry Sound. And the invitation goes to the mayors, councillors, and CAOs or their designates to attend an information meeting at Belvedere Thursday, 7 p.m. And this is November 21st. We hired Robert Berg. He is the president of Assured Care Counseling to work with us, and he performed an operational review, a financial analysis of our business models, which involves 3 business ventures under one roof, and a means to discover a more accountable and desired path to follow. So this included a strategic study with a view to the future, and this is the evening that we hope you'll attend as local funders and stakeholders to come and hear and provide input into our strategic plan and moving forward. Mr. Berg will be conducting this session. He's a good speaker, a nice, well-spoken individual, very nice, friendly man. You'll enjoy listening to him. So that's November 21st in the evening at Belvedere. Then, as mentioned, Wednesday afternoon, October 23rd, I too participated in the mock council meeting, as was mentioned, with Mayor McGarvey and Councillor Keith, and of course our staff members as well. And a big thank you to Ann Hurd, who puts this together every year. This hands down is my favorite thing to do every year, and I enjoyed the mock council meeting. So that was October 23rd, and as Councillor Burton mentioned, there was a poppy raising flag ceremony at the town office Friday morning, the 25th. I was there as well. By request of the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 117, our council authorized November 2nd as the Legion's annual day. I'm sure it was a successful one, and that the poppy flag would be flown here at the town office from the 25th of October to November 11th. As Councillor Borneman mentioned, please remember to remember and wear your poppy on Remembrance Day and attend the ceremonies which will be held, as they always are, at the Cenotaph. I too, as a spectator, attended the wellness meeting on Monday evening, October 28th. It's been mentioned around the table how excited we all are, and things are coming together. I just have a really good feeling that things are going to fall into place, and I'm really encouraged by the participation and the cooperation and the momentum that this project has. So the public is always welcome to attend the open sessions of these meetings, and I encourage you to do so. As well, I'd like to offer condolences to the Jerome and Demick families on the passing of Jim. A lot's been said about Jim here tonight. He was indeed our treasurer for 26 years. He was also a kinsman, a K40 member, a third-degree Knights of Columbus member, and a former trustee for the Catholic School Board. Funeral services are at St. Peter's Church tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. So condolences for the family. And just one last thing I'll mention here this evening, and we'll hear more about this as Christmas comes closer. The 8th annual Be a Santa to a Senior campaign is underway, or will be underway very shortly, and I'll have more for this on my Facebook and my own website at dougmccann.ca as we attempt to promote this and get people involved. And we're going to be talking in the future about community support services and their efforts to reach out to the community. There's a lot of seniors, not just who live at Belvedere or Lakeland long-term care, but who are on their own and have very little means, are very lonely, and they benefit greatly from what community support services do. And as always, no surprise to anyone, budgeting is always an issue. So we're going to see what we can do to help them along here in the next little while. But certainly get in touch with me or Linda Taylor at Community Support Services for more information on the Santa to a Senior program. And please and thank you very, very much. And that's my report.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Council, staff, and public, October 16th, Councillor Keith mentioned that we visited the grade 5-6 class at St. Peter's School. There certainly were a variety of questions, and this was in preparation, as was mentioned, for part of Local Government Week and the October 23rd mock council meeting. I would also like to thank Ann Herdman for all the work she did putting it together, trying to coordinate everybody's schedules and try to make this work. October 18th to the 20th, I was in Goderich for the Ontario Small Urban Meetings. October 21st, I was part of a guest panel for election night on Your TV. October 24th and 25th, I was in London for AMO's Fall Symposium, a great lineup of topics that AMO put together, and Minister Clark was on hand on the 25th and made some announcements which the government was informing the public on. It was, as Councillor Burden mentioned, October 26th was the Fireman's Dinner at the Legion for 3 retiring firefighters. And I will mention again, Devin Carvenan, 12 years, Jamie Tranter, 18 years, Brian Tuck, 28 years. It's 58 years of dedicated service between 3 gentlemen. And we're very lucky to have so many dedicated people that serve on our fire department. And we wish all the retirees the best and a great deal of thanks for their service, and thank those that are serving today for their dedication and commitment to the community. If you can pass that on to the firefighters, Chief, that would be great. October 28th, as mentioned, was the recreational complex meeting. Again, yeah, it was well attended, and the funding application is being worked on to get to the government on the 12th. October 29th, I attended the Festival of the Authors event, which was held at the Stocky Center. Well attended event with readings from 4 exceptional writers, which was good. November 1st to the 3rd, I attended the Ontario Nonprofit Housing Conference in Toronto, and Michael Jasek from AMO and I did a session on community housing through the municipal lens. I was basically giving people and nonprofits an idea of how to work with municipal governments and get their process so they can be heard and work through any challenges that they might have. I will also add my condolences as well to the Morel and Demick families, the passing of Jerome. He was a good man, and I can say that, you know, over the years I had many conversations with him, and he was, I thought, always very wise and intelligent, and he certainly had good, solid perspectives on things. So, and that's my report. Councillor Backman. Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, forgot about that. I should have started with you. So, since I did mine, you can do yours.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, staff, those watching at home and present. With Councillor Borneman and Councillor Burden, I also attended the Industrial Park Board meeting on the 31st, and it is great to see a lot of new business activity in the park. Also on October 28th, the Monday, I did attend remotely the West Parry Sound Pool Committee meeting, and yes, things are progressing well. The next meeting is Wednesday, the 6th, tomorrow at noon. Today I attended a meeting with both our nonprofit housing providers to help discuss opportunities to help gain access to funding for the West Parry Sound Recreation Complex. One of the components is that they are looking into participating in this application, and the funding program that the West Parry Sound Pool Committee is applying for is under the Community Culture and Recreation stream. Therefore, they are considering a request to look at the naming of adding the culture into the name of that, and that would be coming forward in supporting of an application with adding an additional win, as well as support for our First Nations and communities to show that culture and heritage is important to all communities. Lastly, I'd like to just make note of two events. Park to Park Trail is still requesting help for their bridges. The next trail bridge repair date is November 8th. If anyone is interested, please visit the parktoparktrail.com website and contact them to find out more details. As well, I'd like to just note that the 2019 Canadian Pacific Holiday Train will be in Parry Sound November 29th, arriving at 4:15. The doors will open at 4:30 for the event. I just want to note that in 2018, the Canadian Pacific Holiday Train raised over 1.3 million and over 200,000 pounds of food for a total of 15.8 million and 4.5 million pounds of food raised since 1999. I just encourage and please remember, if you can, please bring a harvest share donation, and I look forward to seeing you there. That's my report for this evening. Thank you.
Sorry I missed. I know it won't be the first time. It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. But my cold is trying to get the best of me tonight, I think. But okay, we're on with the agenda. There's a gentleman that has a question, and unfortunately we're into the meeting. It should have been done during deputations, but I'll have a staff person talk to you, okay? Mr. Brown, can you find out what it is? And because, okay, my apologies, but so item 10.2.2, which is moved forward. It's moved by Councillor Borneman and second by Councillor Burden, that bylaw number 2019-6981, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2004-4653, the zoning bylaw, as amended, for 32 Great North Road, Disler, Nebraska, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor Burden, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. That one. Next item is 1031. It's moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn. That bylaw number 2019-6979, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Canadian Tire, Parry Sound for exclusive advertising on the Olympia Ice Resurfacer Unit for a term of 3 years, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? Carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and seconded by Councillor Horn. The bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Discussion. Councillor Keith.
Yes, I have a question in respect to this matter. Ms. McNamara, I'm just wanted to be clear. Were there any other businesses that expressed the desire to have advertising on this piece of equipment?
Through your worship, Councillor Keith, Canadian Tire Parry Sound has been the exclusive holder to these rights since 2001. As part of this agreement, we do provide them with first right of refusal, and every year Mr. Kluche is quite interested in renewing his agreement. The cost, and the reason why we include the option of renewal in this process is the cost associated with removing vinyl decals is quite high for the length of the term of the agreement.
Yes.
The follow-up to that question would be for the advertising agreement fee that is here. Has that been researched to see if it's a fair fee for that period of time?
Through your worship, yes, it has been researched, and yes, that is a fair fee for the term.
Okay. Any further discussion, comments, questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Sign the rest of that after. Moved by Councillor Bachman and seconded by Councillor Horn that a decision on consent application B 25/219 PS St. James Centennial United Church be approved subject to 1. Payment for cash in lieu of parkland dedication for one new lot. 2. That the applicant be advised that each of the severed and retained lots require separate and individual water and sewer services, or if necessary, an easement be conveyed for any services which traverse either the severed or retained lot in favor of the other lot. That the severed lot ensure the parking requirements are satisfied either by parking on site, obtaining permission from the town, or including a right-of-way on the retained parcel. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
Thanks. Just trying to get a grip on this. I thought this lot already had some parking spaces on it. I'm not sure that I fully understand what it is that we need to do here.
Through your worship, is this in regards to recommended condition number 3? Until they get a survey, it's difficult to tell if the parking in front of the building is of adequate size. So this is more of a heads up to the applicant that if they don't have enough room, They could change their survey to include it on the retained lands, or they could provide themselves a right-of-way. There's many ways they could go about it. It's just until we have the survey, we don't know if they have enough on site.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman and then Councillor Backman.
Well, Mr. Algie, you heard the deputation that was made earlier with respect to payment of parkland or cash in lieu of parkland dedication. Do you have I'm not asking for direction, do you have a comment on that? Would council be within its purview to say, you know, cash in lieu of parkland in the amount of $1 in order to keep this within guidelines?
Through your worship, it is within council's purview to make such a decision. Staff don't often recommend in favor of waiving fees. I did do a quick dig through the files, but it does tend to be a case-by-case basis. I found one though where Habitat had they were essentially given a retainer which they could use towards a bunch of fees. So there is some history with council making that decision, but it's at your discretion essentially.
Councillor Borneman.
I think I don't know whether 25 years is accurate for the law office in the Mansk or not, but I do think the situation has been in existence for quite some time, and I have some sympathy for the church, the Mary Street Center. So I'd make that motion that we charge $1 in lieu of parkland in this instance to allow this to go forward, and the funds provided by the sale of the property to be used in providing services to the community.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Okay, Councillor Backman and you, so Councillor Backman, I know she's had her hand up over here for a bit. So what I'm going to do is put in here payment of $1 for cash in lieu of parkland dedication for the new lot, one new lot. Does that sound reasonable? Okay, any discussion on the amendment? No. All in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? It's carried. One opposed. Okay, so any discussion on the resolution here as amended? Oh, you had a question. Sorry. Go ahead.
I would just have to agree with providing relief here in lieu of parkland because it is recognized the impact that this facility and this not-for-profit organization provides to the community, and there is no doubt in my mind that the monies that would be paid in lieu definitely would go towards programming to be offered to residents, not only in Parry Sound but throughout the region. But I would just ask that maybe there be some maybe communication with our staff to see if there is some type of programming that could potentially, you know, we could look at partnering on in the future.
Okay.
Just in, you know, again, going back to the type of programming that they offer, is maybe we can get some kind of follow-up in the future is what I was referring to on where they provided the different type of programming that was provided to the community that would offset that lieu of parkland cost. So if it was X amount of dollars, maybe a follow-up note could be provided to the town that showed this is where those monies were allocated. I don't know if that would be something that
I don't know whether you need to do that, but
okay.
But they are having a meeting next week, I think, with regard to the homeless, the warming center. So, and they're working with the DSAB and Harbor Share and a bunch of community groups to work on having a warming shelter in the Mary Street Center, which I'd have to commend them for wanting to do that. That is something that we needed. And if they're going to do that, hey, that's really, really good. So I know I sent my regrets. I can't make that meeting. I'm in Toronto, but if someone else can, that would be really good. Is it this week or next week? It might be this week. Oh, it was today. Okay. Okay. All right. Anyway.
Just to follow up on that comment with regarding the warming center, I did have conversations with people in the community when they were looking for locations, and one of the locations that they did propose was a municipal facility, and we weren't certain, or I'm just speaking in myself, that there's potentially alternate locations for this. So now seeing that another organization has taken on those costs towards that, I think that that is very justifiable versus the municipality taking on those costs with staff servicing at the Bobby York Community Center.
They need to be commended for what they're doing. Anything further on this resolution? Councillor Key.
Yes, I'm going to say that I feel the St. Mary's Center does a lot of things for our community. But one of my concerns is setting a precedent where once the precedent is set, there ends up being another organization that is helpful to our community. And so we start to snowball, and that's what my concern is. I do think sometimes there's more than one way that you can circulate that money without it being necessarily done the way we've approved it, council has approved tonight. So I'm just saying there's more than one way of doing it, and I am concerned that we don't set precedents because that can come back to bite us. But it's not that I don't value the work that St. Mary's Center does.
Okay. Anything further on the resolution as amended? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? No, it's carried. There we go. Item 922, it's moved by Councillor Horn and seconded by Councillor Keith. Council for the Town of Parry Sound approves the budget purchase of ambulance in-vehicle computers in the amount of $87,550 plus HST from Interdev. Discussion? All in favor? That's carried. We take a 5-minute recess just for a moment.